Lau mei whaianga whaasusu si au tama o iaile moenga a whai mai. Whai mai si lau ti o la lele o la
My name is Richard Taylor. I'm the producer of this film by La Mancha Media, America's Forgotten Colonies. And we have visited on this trip American Samoa, Guam, and Saipan. And we've learned a lot about the Samoans on Samoa, the Chamorros on Guam, and the Chamorros and Carolinians here on Saipan. It's really been a fascinating journey to learn about what we call America's forgotten colonies.
American Samoa is a series of small islands in the South Pacific Ocean, an unincorporated territory of the United States. Its residents are not U.S. citizens, but U.S. nationals. Samoans have inhabited the islands for 3,000 years. Europeans discovered the islands in the 18th century, but stayed away as the indigenous were known for being savage and warlike. By the late 19th century, European and American vessels routinely stopped in the islands for provisions.
So leading up to 1900, when you had all the superpowers trying to stake their claim in the Pacific, you had the Germans, you had the Great Britain, the British, you had Americans, and then you had the French. So everybody was here trying to, claim the islands for themselves. And
in 1900, the U.S. was granted American Samoa as a colony. Today, this term is associated with imperialism. Therefore, the softer term territory is used. During this time, it was fashionable for European countries to increase their reach worldwide by acquiring colonies. The U.S. followed this fashion, mostly for geopolitical reasons.
Yeah, on April 17th, 1900. Wow. So that is 117 years ago, the first American flag was raised and we officially ceded the territory, or at least Tutuila, over to the U.S.
It immediately began building a naval station, which in hindsight was critical as a refueling base in World War II in its fight against Japan.
This is why Uncle Sam wanted these islands as opposed to independent Samoa Islands, because of the harbor right here.
The U.S. military's massive presence influenced the local Samoans. The two cultures, both being warlike, began growing symbiotically.
When the Marines came to town, around the war, they basically built out, along the World War II Heritage Trail, which starts here, the back of the tramway site, and ends at Blunt's Point. There are several World War II artifacts.
Today, American Samoa yields the highest rate of military enlistment of any U.S. state or territory.
But then there's also this, belief of a lot of people that, our warrior culture, it's still, within us. And if you meet some of these guys, they're some of the toughest soldiers you'll ever meet. And I think part of our culture develops that mentality that is, I guess, well suited for military service. That's how I got off the island. After graduation, I joined the Navy, and that was my.
Cool. Were you in San Diego?
That's where I was stationed, for 4 years down at 32nd Street. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I got out, went to college, and did the career thing, and made my way back.
By its status as an unincorporated and unorganized territory, it's a sort of social experiment for the U.S., where not all constitutional provisions apply. Therefore, it is allowed to hold on to some of its ancient traditions, like the Matai system, where unelected, nonpartisan chiefs of its villages hold cultural and legal sway. Moreover, private land ownership laws do not apply here, which prevent outside corporations from buying property and putting up big brand hotels and restaurants.
My opinion, the Matai system is part of why the Samoans have held on to our culture for as long as we have. You gotta remember, the Samoan Islands were initially settled 3,000 years ago, and so our history is long and deep. And when you compare us to other cultures, wherever you're looking at throughout the world, you can see huge portions of cultures falling away. The Samoan culture is still really held onto tightly. A lot of people will point to, for example, what happened in Hawaii with losing your land rights and losing the culture and losing the language and all of that. I think a lot of the Samoan people from generations before ours saw that happening and are fearful of that occurring to us. And so, yeah, that's Starkist. So they, aside from the government, they're the second largest employer on island. And that plant, Starkist plant, is their largest production plant in the world. They produce the most tuna, from what I understand, in one facility. They go out and they search for schools of tuna, and then they deploy the net, and they scoop the tuna up. The nets are key to being able to get the quantity of the raw material necessary to can all that tuna you see at Walmart and all the other stores where Starkist is at. It's an ongoing struggle for us to make sure that Starkist stays here, because if they leave, and they may end up leaving depending on how things play out over the next 5 years, like minimum wage and that sort of thing.
So what's the problem with the minimum wage? Is it lower here than the federal?
It is, which is part of the reason why they can operate profitably here, especially when you compare them to operations, in Southeast Asia, in those areas. But the Fair Minimum Wage Act that was passed by Congress, applies here as well, and we've been able to lobby to postpone the increases, but at the end of the day, we have to comply unless something changes and raise our minimum wage so that it matches the federal level. We just experienced a 40-cent hike last year. The one part of that resulted in the direct closure of the second cannery. Over 2,000 people were unemployed, displaced as a result of that.
Unemployment and other factors have led to an obesity and diabetes epidemic on American Samoa. Michael owns a fitness and rowing club on the island.
My wife and I own South Pacific Water Sports and Fitness here in American Samoa. The goal of our business is to offer our community a resource to really fight back against obesity and some of the diseases attached to it. And we offer a variety of exercise programs, training programs, including outrigger canoe paddling. We've forgotten, that we are from the ocean. We're from a navigating people. And so this is a huge connection to who we are and our past. This is Paula, my other half, the brains behind the business.
How are you?
Richard and David.
No, I just do all the work. So first and foremost, the opportunity to share water sports, that was the first goal. And so with that in mind, we had this space, and we thought, what, we really want to do more than just that. There's, you have so many people, families, relatives, friends who have diabetes, who are so obese. I mean, even my own relatives, and that's really scary. There are a lot of people who are bigger, who are uncomfortable with going to the gym, don't know what to do. And so I wanted an opportunity to share with them and teach them so that they could learn how to do exercises, learn how to take better care of their bodies, to be more fit. It's a little bit both, helping people who already have diabetes and those that are on the borderline as well. And those people who really just want to learn and lose weight, learn how to be more fit and lose weight. So for me, that's it. And I'm really happy that we've definitely helped a lot of people, fit people and people who need more guidance. And I'm proud of what we do.
Well, this practice is Whangaitua High School. Whangaitua High School is one of the powerhouses here on island. And they're always competing for the championship year in and year out. They've produced a lot of great athletes, a lot of good football players have made it into the college ranks and even to the NFL. Yeah. I saw it in Sports Illustrated. Your chances of making it to the NFL, if you're Samoan or from American Samoa, are 5 or 6 times greater than anywhere else. Yeah. Something like that. And it's just a per capita sort of stat,
Junior Seau, was he born here?
No, Junior was born in California, but his parents were from here. Yeah. The Seau family is still here. And being Samoan myself and having spent 20 years in San Diego, And unfortunately, being a big Charger fan, you know, Junior was huge. And when he passed, that was a big loss for the community of San Diego and the football community and NFL community as well, but also for the Samoan community in general. He was when he spoke of Samoan football, it was Junior. He was the face of number 55.
I met him because he had a restaurant in San Diego called Seau.
Right there in Mission Valley.
We had a non-profit event at his restaurant, and I'll never forget. I don't know, somehow I got introduced to him, and he asked me what I did. And I said, well, it was a long time ago. I said, well, I just moved out to California a year ago, and I was in the air conditioning business.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, Richard, tell me about the air conditioning business. And I'm like, Junior Seau is asking me about the air conditioning business?
For thousands of years, Samoans were isolated from the rest of the world. One of their earliest and most traumatic encounters with the outside world came in 1787, when an expedition led by the French explorer Leparouse came ashore near the village of Asu, which was located at the end of a V-shaped bay. Today, the village of Asu no longer exists, its remnants only reachable by boat. Our guide was Antonio Ione, a direct descendant of ruling chiefs of the ancient village of Asu. As we neared Asu, he pointed out that his ancestors used to hide in waiting for foreign invaders, who they would then trap inside the bay at low tide and ambush. When Leparouse arrived here, he noticed a river flowing into the sea and decided to stop to obtain fresh water.
So when they came, and according to my family, they came in 2 boats. This is the actual river that they saw, and they got their water.
The Samoan chiefs came out to engage the French on the beach. Yet this first encounter was peaceful, and the French were allowed to provision. This peaceful encounter lowered the guard of the Samoans during a second visit by the French. At the second engagement, the Samoans decided, in a spirit of friendship, to allow their women and elders to meet the French on the beach. According to the Samoans, the French sailors, desiring the women, attempted to take them to their ship in the harbor. At this, the Samoans attacked the French, killing 11 and wounding 20. Leparouse barely escaped, naming it Massacre Bay, which title still holds today. Antonio then walked us to a memorial erected by the French. For nearly 100 years following the massacre, there was very little contact among the Samoans and the Europeans. But by the late 19th century, many Samoans had become Christian by way of missionary activity. And in 1883, the French government was granted permission to erect a memorial for its downed explorers, who the Samoans had respectfully buried here following the battle.
So during that period, after the attack in 1787, did the Samoans not trust the Europeans anymore?
Yes, especially from here.
Especially from the south.
Yeah. It was very hard to trust.
So it took another 100 years before.
Yeah.
Today, the village of Asu no longer exists, as the jungle has taken it back. However, Antonio is attempting to re-homestead the area for his family of Asu descendants.
This building, I just start building this building just so we can have something to come back and dry, because we was using tents. I was born here in Asu. This is where I grew up until I was 14 years old, and I left for Hawaii. Finished my school, and then joined the military. Stayed in the military for 33 years, then retired. The area now and where I'm built the house is actually old foundations from previous, from my grandfather, my father's grandfather, and their ancestors. Coming back here was a decision made by my siblings and the families. They voted me in as to return, and not only to care for the land, but also for all our graves and everything of the property.
How long are you staying here?
Sometimes I stay for up to a month.
You bring in all your food and
Yes, and plus we already grow some bananas, pumpkins, and some of that stuff is already on ground.
On our way back to civilization, a school of dolphins met us. Antonio told us that the souls of his ancestors inhabit the dolphins, and they show their approval and love by swimming alongside him, protecting him.
Before the missionaries arrived, we do have that belief, and it's, to me as a historian, I can call it's the traditional belief that we have that supernatural God, which his name was Tangaloa. Basically, Samoa back in the days, there were so many gods. It's a multi, I can say almost each big families have their own gods, even different districts. So take for example, the district that I'm from, we believe that the octopus is our god. And whatever time we go out with war with another district, we always pray to the octopus to help us. But we do believe that the supernatural God of the Samoans, and his name was Tangaloa, and we do believe he stays somewhere in Manua in the village of Fitiuta. And from there, we call him in Samoa Tangaloa Fa'atupunu. That means he's the creator. Tangaloa Fa'atupua'ai, he's the creator of all villages. Tangaloa Fa'atupu Tangata, he's the creator of a human man or a human being. So we still have that belief, even in nowadays. We always believe that Tangaloa was the supernatural God. And I think that's the reason why it's easy for us Samoan to accept the coming of Christianity, is because we already access to the word tapuainga, to the word religion, to the word denomination, because of the word God with a small g. And that's the belief, from the days until now.
A very young U.S. anthropologist, Margaret Mead, came to American Samoa in the early 1900s to study young girls. Her book, Coming of Age in Samoa, explained that island girls were free to engage in sexual activity without moral restriction. Much like Paul Gauguin's paintings in the Pacific during the same period, her book was used by a generation to refute the idea of an intrinsic morality or modesty in nature. However, her book has been discredited by subsequent researchers.
Now, Margaret Mead, I hear stories from my mom that were told to her by her mom about Margaret Mead's visit to Manua. Now, my grandmother, she's from Ta'u, the island of Ta'u in Manua, and the village of Ta'u. And according to her, she recalls seeing Margaret Mead there, Palangi lady, of course, as she described it to my mom. And there's some controversy, of course, with whether or not Margaret Mead's accounts of what took place in the village were true or not. And according to my grandmother, a lot of what had happened was the locals, for a lack of a better description, pulling her leg. And so these stories that were told about, the young women being free or promiscuous, those were tall tales being told to her, as opposed to her witnessing it firsthand. And so, the village jokesters, whoever was in charge of, the interpretation and giving her the tour, apparently had a sense of humor. And that's the story according to my grandmother.
Margaret Mead was also one of the first to describe the village of Waitonge, the site of the most famous Samoan legend called the Turtle and the Shark, or Lumai Mamale.
The whole area over here, we call it the Turtle and the Shark area. Laumei means turtle.
Miss Sonofeva Bartley is the current caretaker. Her family has controlled the lands of the turtle and the shark for generations. The legend, according to Ms. Bartley, is as follows. There was once an old blind woman named Fanawea who had only her granddaughter to take care of her. During a time of great famine, Fanawea was very hungry. One day, some local village boys were cooking food, and instead of giving Fanawea some, gave her a cooked rat as a jest. Fanawea was angered by this disrespect.
Are you serious? Yeah, it's a rat. Don't eat it because it's bad. Fanawea told her granddaughter, come on, hold my hand, and we're going to go all the way down to Waitangi, our village. Waitangi is the name of our village. Let's go all the way down to the ocean. The younger girl, the granddaughter, hold Fanuea's hand, and then they both jump in the water. Even Fanawea, when she was telling her daughter, we're going to jump in, she never used the word suicide. And then what? Fanawea turned into a turtle, and the young girl turned into a shark. Ever since then, and that's it. They're still there.
There are several lessons of this story, one being that Samoans should never disrespect the elderly, and another that whoever is sick or blind needs to be cared for, usually by the girls in the family, even to such extremes as self-sacrifice.
The Samoan culture, whoever is sick, blind or what, whatever, there's always somebody to look after that person. Usually the young girls are.
To this day, when the villagers of Waitangi sing the song of Fanawea from the cliffs, a turtle and shark come to the surface of the sea.
Lau mei whaianga whaasusu si au tama o iaile moenga a whai mai si lau ti o la lele o lava le lau mei apa e lau mei apa le lau mei apa e lau mei Fonuea lau mai sau mana mea Po o sa I oi lunga nei, o sa le tuli oi lunga nei. A uaina, a laina, o le aso, lo mataina, lau tu la lele. Then everybody should go like, yeah!
While our camera did not capture it, one of our parties saw the turtle, despite the severe surf.
I saw the turtle.
Are you serious?
I think so.
You're probably right.
On the top.
Yeah, I know. When it's rough like this,
Yeah.
she's always on the top because like that. Probably she was looking for some place or whatever.
As we were about to leave American Samoa on our way to Guam, we were informed that Kim Jong-un of North Korea had threatened to attack Guam with a nuclear weapon.